boys seeing this fancy stream intro screen? Awesome. Everybody else is watching it too. Let's go ahead and switch over to our view. Welcome back, everybody. This is Steve, KM9G, and I have these two boys here, wherever they happen to be on screen, that are going to help us answer any ham questions that you have. If you're in the chat, make sure to preface whatever it is that you have to ask with the word question, and then type your question in so we get to draw some attention to it. And if you're watching this on Team Replay, leave a comment down below, and we will see it, and we will answer you back. We'll go to, I know Sean's probably got some audio issues, so I'll go to Ape first. Ape, how you doing this morning?
I'm still trying to wake up. Just in case folks don't know, I'm TheSmokinApe, and I like ham radio and ham radio accessories.
Awesome.
But yeah, still trying to wake up, drinking my Coke Zero and getting caffeinated.
Awesome. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I was like, not again. You got me.
You guys didn't know it. Yeah, if you guys didn't know it, I'm ham radio dude, and yeah, I make videos on radios that I get my hands on and other stuff that's related to, I guess, technology and radio stuff. But it's a journey, and here to help people along the way. I'm learning things as well. So that's me. Check out my channel, and over to you, T.O.
Awesome. Yeah, so Chuck's asking, good morning, Chuck. Chuck's asking if that intro screen was copyrighted. And as far as I know, it is royalty-free and available for use. And then that white text, I did that. That's the talent that I bring to the table, is the ability to put text over somebody else's filmography. No audio.
Innocent.
What were you going to say, Abe?
I said, you're innocent in this one.
I am completely innocent. Yeah, so I had a copyright claim, not a copyright strike, so I didn't get blasted for it, but the theme that I use in my intro was taken from somebody else and posted as royalty-free content, and then I consumed that royalty-free content completely innocently. I'm totally innocent here. And finally, the guy who created it, and he's totally welcome to do this, it's his work of art, I respect all that, got in touch with the YouTube copyright claim system and filed the claim on the other guy, which then got its way over to me, and now that music's gone. So we put some new music out on yesterday morning's video, and we'll have some new music on the outro for this video, but that's the way we roll. Right on the
Yeah,
edge.
I got a copyright strike once, and it was for an old video. The video was like 8 years old.
Wow.
And it had no views on it, and so I just signed over that he could have all the revenue.
All of the nothing.
Yeah, right, because there was nothing on it. And I was like, "That's you can have it. It's fine."
You get all the nothing.
That becomes very concerning too, though, because I use Filmora, Wondershare Filmora, to edit my videos, and they have a library full of royalty-free music. But what I've noticed is there are artists who eventually say, "No, we want to take that back. We want
Correct.
our royalties." And then what do? Like, then you have all these videos that, somehow are now copyrighted.
Well, that's what I think happened with mine is I'm pretty sure I used Mac iMovie to do it, and I used the music library there, which was free at the time. But then they took it back. It should be from the time you publish it, whatever the license was at that point in time.
So YouTube has this new tool, and it's got, well, 3 different things. One is you can just do what Ape did and say, go ahead, take it. The other one is you can mute the song, and they're going to try and figure out what the song is and then what the voices are, and hope for the best. That's all technology based. And then you can just mute the entire video. So the one where I got the copyright claim was the end of our FT8 off live stream last Thursday. And it was the last 10 seconds. I played an outro just to kind of polish the stream up a bit and clean up the scene. And they're like,
"Oh, fancy.
Yes, your hour and 15-minute long video has 10 seconds worth of somebody else's audio in it, so it's not yours anymore." Okay, so I just went in and muted it. That is the problem with
YouTube as well. YouTube, YouTube just says, "Hey, this is or isn't copyrighted." But if you were to ever take something like that to court, there would be more of a case there. And the reason it would be is fair use specifies that, like, you could actually use clips for certain things like reviews, overviews, educational purposes. And if you're using just a second clip, if you want to take it that far to small claims or to actual court, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. It just depends on the whole totality of the circumstance. There was a question, by the way.
Yeah,
Chuck
Chuck.
K6USY. He says, "Are any of you boys going to buy that 120 watt Baofeng?" And the answer is, it's already on the way.
Hell yeah!
Hell
yeah!
I got 2 of them on the way, but man,
That's
I'm
why it
hoping
was
I
sold
got the
out.
right one. Yeah, I'm hoping I got the right one because mine were advertised as only 60 watts with 24 amp hour batteries. So, hopefully I get the 120 watts, but if not, I'll take the 60 watts.
Well, see, Baofeng's seeing what K6ARK is doing, climbing up mountaintops with little teeny tiny radios that put out massive amounts of contacts. And they're like, well, I mean, if he can do it at 5 watts, we can certainly claim that we have 120 watts. I mean, obviously it's working for him.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, Jim's asking for you to post a link, and then we got a feller by the name of Sunil who is watching us from India, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Hello to all our fans in India.
Hey.
Chuck is starting the Caliber Wars. Is it 223 or 556? Yes.
I like 30-6 if we're donating. You get it now?
Yeah. And then K6ARK says, "What makes you think I didn't modify mine for 120 watts?" I fully expect that you've modified it for 120 watts, Adam. I totally I just see that everything you do is just to the next level.
Right, it's extreme
ham radio.
I can't see.
He does a good job. He does a good job of taking really incredible adventures, right, and then overlaying them with a high degree of engineering, right? So it's like you get when you watch Adam's video, and I'm not trying to fanboy, but you really get 2 for 1 out of the deal.
Startling visuals. Yeah, I can sit down with the family and watch one of Adam's videos, and it's like, oh, look at the mountains, look at the scenery, look at the antenna.
It's. I should probably preface it by saying the same thing as Abe said. I don't want to fanboy Adam either, but I have people coming up to me in my personal life saying, "Have you seen this guy's videos, K6ARK?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." Like they're serious videos,
We're internet
close. We're internet friends.
We're close personal friends. Yeah, we talk on the regular.
I was like, "Yeah." I said hello to him once.
So Winter Field Day, how did you?
So I just linked the. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so Sean linked the Baofeng on Wish, and then I was going to bring up Winter Field Day, so we started talking more about ourselves. Abe, what'd you do for Winter Field Day?
I didn't do a whole heck of a lot. I actually started working on a video yesterday, and then once I was finished up recording, I hooked that antenna that I put up, the Chameleon MCOM3, to my 7300, and the RFI that I was getting was brutal. I mean, just every couple K, I had a vertical line on all bands on 15, 17, 20, 30, 40, and it just made it unusable.
Adam is so modest. He says he's just another geek that tinkers with radios and plays in nature. Out of like the 6 geeks that do that.
So yeah, I didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but that's all right. I had stuff. I had project stuff that I was working on, and then Chuck built this little rotating motor kind of deal for his antenna, and I got all the parts in yesterday. This is
look at that.
This is the motor, and then I hope I ordered everything right, because this is the controller board for it. But the one that he said to get, they didn't, or was out of stock. So this is a different one, but it should all work. And one of the things, and I'm asking him a question, is he said that he could power this motor off of a 9-volt battery, but the specs for the motor say it's a 12-volt motor. So maybe 9 will work, but I don't know if that would cause any kind of grief.
I would say that 9 would work, but it might not be strong enough to rotate your antenna as fast as it's claimed. It's like you get a car that says it wants 93 octane gas. You can put lower fuel in it, and the car's computer will adjust, and you just won't get that 300 horsepower out of it.
Well, this controller board's got this button here, this knob that you can turn to control speed too. Sorry, dude.
Chuck just confirmed that it will run. It just runs slower, which makes a lot of sense.
And Brooke says that she didn't do any Winter Field Day stuff. So, I mean, you're absolutely right, Brooke. The first step to solving a problem is admitting that you have one.
Well, what got me thinking about it is that I was looking at that My 80, what's that called? The My 80 battery, that
Oh
everybody
yeah,
seems to.
MIADY. Yep.
Now, if I'm wrong, Adam, tell me. Most amateur radios prefer an input voltage of 13.8 volts, right? We can all agree to that. And you have plus and minus for some variance or fluctuation. One of the things that is very important when you operate your ham radio is that you maintain that consistent voltage. Now, I do have some battery experience. If you look at my channel, I've probably got 50 videos on batteries and stuff like that. And one of the things that concerns me is that when you do things like single sideband, your draw on that battery from a current standpoint fluctuates greatly from low to high, depending upon the modulation of your voice that's going out, right? And what you really need in a good power supply is to be able to maintain the voltage, even though you're fluctuating the current, right? That's the difference between a good power supply and a bad power supply. And it's the same thing with a battery. So you want your battery to maintain that. Now, under load, batteries will decrease in their voltage output. And I'm concerned that the My80s being so cheap, and I've read that a lot of people have deconstructed them and found that the batteries are not balanced well. So you have some batteries that have lower capacity and lower voltage than others. And so, yeah, obviously what I'm concerned about is if I could bought the My80 battery, that I would be using it, and then I would deliver a lower voltage to my radio, possibly causing some kind of problem.
So my comments on that, because Adam has a couple in the chat, and I agree with that. He says 1349 for a charged Miati battery resting, and then he says the internal resistance is the primary factor, and he agrees with what you said. Different bands perform with different voltage inputs in different ways. Like the 20 meter band is going to draw current in a different way than the same radio with the same battery will with a 40 meter antenna, running on 40 meters, obviously. And then as your battery voltage decreases as input to the radio, then your output from the radio will also decrease, kind of like the way an amplifier works, only in kind of the opposite direction, or maybe even the same direction. But, you put 7 watts into a battery, you're going to get you put 7 volts into a battery, you're not going to get the same wattage as if you put what it's designed to run on 13.8 in, but it'll still do something.
Yeah. And oh, look at this. He's getting a lot of input variance, is what Jim's saying. What I see is all these people who do these reviews on these batteries, and they test them for capacity. They don't test them for continuous voltage output.
Output.
And everybody's like, this is the best, greatest battery in the whole wide worlds. And
For the price.
I just decided not to do it.
Yeah. So KM4ACK did a huge review on that battery too.
Yeah, he did. And I believe K8MRD did one as well.
Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say that battery tester that I got, which does voltage, current, and everything along those lines, would that be a sufficient test for what you're talking about right now? Because if it is, I'll go buy one of those batteries.
Well, I thought about that because I was going to buy that tester, but the thing is that has a consistent draw, right? And so what I'm talking about is a variable draw, and then the ability of the battery to maintain the voltage over the variation.
I suppose you could do a variable draw, but you'd have to probably just sit there and turn it on or up, or make a little Arduino device to turn the variable knob.
Just reuse that one that you did for Tinder.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about here.
Right, of course. Yeah, so that battery tester you have is essentially a heater with a meter on it and a fan.
Right.
So I mean, you're just converting energy into heat.
You can adjust the current and everything along those lines. It's just you can't tell it to continually adjust, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I see what you're talking about, Abe. Maybe
I'm not trying to hate on the My80 batteries or anything like that, but it just was concerning enough for me that I said, I'm not going to buy it.
Chuck says he's going to check his today. Jim says that the display on his 891 was flickering. And he was saying, Chuck says that the BioNOs do the same thing.
So Don is saying that what about using a boost circuit to maintain the output voltage? What I've seen in some cases, what people do is they take a bank of capacitors, and then you charge the capacitors off of the battery, and then you use the capacitors to go into the radio, and then you allow the capacitors to maintain the input voltage to the radio. So it's kind of like an interim device. But again, I'm not I'm not an electronics dude.
PC4AD Anton says he hasn't gone battery mobile yet, but he did notice on the 7300 meter, the one that's on the screen, the voltage is quite fluctuating, however, seems stable on the output terminals of the PSU. And that's correct. You're going to see that meter move as the volume and intensity of your voice changes, or the volume of or intensity of your signal changes. And that's where we're getting this falling down under load thing. And how well does it handle this fluctuating load versus just a static, 12 volt draw for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of the story is that when buying a battery, there's more than just capacity, right? When you figure on what you're going to get. Dude, that's funny.
I was checking the comments and I missed that.
Yeah, I'm just checking them out right now, those batteries. My 80 battery.
Well, I was close to buying the, I guess it was a 16. I think there's a 32 amp amp one that's $100, which is an incredible value if it's a quality battery. And I'm sure it's a good battery for powering certain things, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to burn up a $1,000 radio using a $100 battery, because I was penny wise and pound foolish, right?
Yeah. So you said it's an incredible battery considering it, and there's where the question comes in. Are you expecting to run life support on this, or are you expecting to make a couple of contacts in a park?
If I was going to buy one of those batteries, what I would likely do is make a solar generator, and then I would use it to power, like to charge devices or run Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. I wouldn't, I probably would run the Zygu or something like that on there, but I'm not hooking up my iComs to that battery. I'm just not going to do it.
So at what point does your radio collection, this is kind of a weird question, I don't know how I'm going to word this properly, but there's like audiophile and there's reference level and all this other kind of stuff, and I would not consider the 7300 or the 891 or a radio like that, I wouldn't consider these to be like uber quality broadcast level, top of the line superior equipment. I would consider it like the 7300. I think the 7300 is a box, and I'm not saying this negatively, I think it's a box full of compromises to reach a price point, and I'm very happy with it, if that makes sense. I think it's a great radio, but I think that it's not.
Well, it's an entry level HF radio.
There you go. It's entry level. That's what I was getting at. So at what point, $4,000, $10,000, $12,000, where do you spend the money? And then all of a sudden, like that Miati battery with a 7300 isn't that big of a deal, but that Miati battery with a 101.
right. I totally agree. But for me, it's like the 7300 was $1,000, right? And it's the radio that I use the most. And I'm not trying to shell out another $1,000 or send it off and have it gone for 2 months while somebody replaces a part or something like that. It's just that for me, it's not something I would want to risk. Now, I love the G90, so don't take it negatively, but I bought that radio strictly for experimentation and playing around with and testing stuff. And if something happened to that, I would, I don't use it all the time, so I wouldn't be out my main radio, be out $500, which would suck, but it's a little bit different, I think. And we got Am Light. He's saying the 7300 fanboyism is annoying.
It is.
And yeah, fanboy stuff is annoying. The thing about the 7300 though is that you do get a tremendous amount of value for what you spend. And it's hard to argue with that. It's hard to find a competition at that price level.
Right. It's like the right radio at the right price with the right set of features. None of them are all amazing on their own, but the fact that so I always bring this up. People ask me like, what's a good radio to get, the 891 or the 7300? And I always say, well, with the 891,
such a hard question.
You need just comparing them for like sitting on your desk at home. The 891, you're going to need to get an external tuner. You're going to need to get an external sound interface. You're going to need to get a whole bunch of other stuff in order to get it to be ready to roll compared to the 7300. And at the end of the day, you still don't have the pan adapter, and you've spent more money.
Right.
And I have both radios. I like both radios. They both have their purpose, but the 7300 is that magic price point of features, and that's why I like it.
I think if you're talking about just sitting on a desk at your house and not taking out on the field or anything like that, yeah, it's probably is easy to say, yeah, there's so many more features with the 7300. But then again, look at the price. So then you got to consider a price point too. Is your price point $1,000 or is your price point $600? You know, so there is quite a bit of difference. But the amount of features you get for that extra $400 are definitely well worth it.
Yeah, and if I'm doing a POTA activation, I'm taking the 891. I'm taking a resonant antenna. I'm not taking a computer with me. I'm parked on a frequency. I'm
Right.
not doing digital modes. It's a great radio for that. It's feature packed and dense for that application, but that's a different application. So that's where those kind of questions come in, is that you've got different applications that have different answers for them.
Well, it's like buying a car,
Just
right?
got the
Like,
same kind.
are you buying a commuter vehicle or
Go
are you
ahead.
buying a work truck? You know what I mean? It just depends on what you want to buy and how you're going to use it.
You got a good point. You sit there and you go to a car lot, right? And let's say it's a person getting their first vehicle. They just left home. They're in their 20s, and they go to the car lot and they're like, "I need a car." Well, you didn't really give me much information on what you're looking for. You're looking for a family car. You're looking for a
Yep.
car that's going to go around the world. Or you're looking for a car that's going to get you to school. Do you have a lot of money? You know, there's just so many different variables to this whole question. And I think we see that with every radio, whether it's a cheap radio or a very expensive radio. It's like, you got to give me a little more information.
Yeah, I mean, I totally think that I would recommend the G90 if somebody asked me, like, I'm brand new to the hobby, I need an HF rig, what should I get? I'd probably be on the G90 side of things if they were more budget minded.
Yeah, I would. I think some people play too much into well, it's only 20 watts. Um, I've gotten pretty good contacts on it. And so somebody, Jim saying a QRP radio. And so, thanks, Cal. The G90 is like QRP plus.
Yeah.
If you ask me. And one of the things is people say, well, you know, it's 20 watts, and then you bought the 705, and the 705 is only 10 watts, and you know, are you worried about that? And when you talk about the purity of your output signal, when you start to get harmonics and you start to get splatter and stuff like that, your 20 watts is spread across a wider variety of frequencies. So that means that your main signal is not a full output quality. It doesn't have the full 20 watts going into it. I have to believe, and haven't tested this yet, that the signal output on the 705 is of a higher purity than the G90. So I would probably consider those to be comparable in strength, but we'll see. We'll play around with it.
Yeah. I think the G90 has a lot of features in it. And I think the 20 watts out is, I certainly wouldn't recommend a 5-watt radio to somebody just getting started out, but I don't want to recommend the price tag of a 7300 or an 891 to somebody just getting started out either. You got to learn what you don't know.
Totally agree.
And that's the same thing we talk about with antennas. Like, everybody, you talk to your club and they're like, the G5RV is the worst antenna ever. But if you put it in the air and you hook a radio to it, you learn a whole lot of stuff that you did not know before you did that.
Well, if you think about it, though, with the G5RV, there's a lot of folks who've had tremendous success as a novice operator with the G5RV. Now, as you get to grow your skill level and your experience level, do you start to realize that maybe there's some compromises that you're making there? Sure. But I think you can get an MFJ G5RV for like $60 or something like that. And it's like, there, I see no reason not to put one of those up.
Jeremy says that excuse me. Jeremy says that he worked Northern Ireland yesterday on 20 watts with a G90 and a good antenna. And, you know, we've prefaced that all the time. We've always said that all the time. A good antenna is gonna do you wonders, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, that just goes to show that you can sit there. Oh, I'm sorry. We must be on a delay. I was gonna say, it just goes to show that, you know, with 20 watts, you could talk around the world. It's not that hard.
Here's Don. He's bringing up the hot topic. He says the ZS6BKW is better.
It sure is.
Yep, it's monster size, and it's got to be like 40 feet in the air, I think is it's my understanding that the dual feed line that you're using, if you lay that across the ground with that ZS6, you're going to get you're going to have some problems there. I'd love to have the ZS6, but I don't have the space or the ability to put one up here.
And DX Commander's in the house. He says, "You look very cute today, Ape." And he also says, he says, run some good quality coax out, as a good foundation, and then you can experiment with any antenna that you want. And that's I definitely agree with that. And I will, and he's not going to like hearing this, but I frequently disconnect the DX Commander antenna coax and use that to experiment with other antennas. But I put it back when I'm done, I promise.
It looks like Dan.
I was going to say,
Go ahead. You got it.
If there's ever a time where you decide that you're not going to hook it back up, I'm going to come over there and I'm going to jack it. So you better make sure it's hooked up.
Yeah, I make sure that it's put to bed nicely every night. So nothing to worry about there.
Beer Snack, the Ham Viking, or Viking Ham, I think is what somebody was calling him the other day. He says he put more Wawa pics in the Discord.
Oh,
So
man.
That's that sandwich he posted yesterday. That made me hungry. Made me hangry.
Pepperoni bagel melt sandwich.
That looked good.
Being from the Central Coast, we don't have Wawa out here in the Central Coast. But what I will say is maybe one day I'll get to try it. What is it, like New Jersey? Is that where they're at?
Wawa, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then anything that's within driving distance
Wawa?
of fresh dairy from Wawa, Pennsylvania.
Oh, so what they do is they basically ensure that every day they're able to deliver fresh products, or what?
Yeah, so they
you gotta
started out as a
explain this
little
Wawa
tiny
thing to me.
They started out as a little tiny dairy in Wawa, Pennsylvania, and they named the dairy after the town. And then they created this convenience store gas station, and then the chain just grows and grows and grows and grows. And you can walk into a Wawa and just like go up to the deli and order a custom fresh made sandwich and get a fresh cup of coffee and everything else you could possibly want. And the staff's real friendly, and people are nice, and it's like the top level gas station.
It's a gas station. Oh, okay. See, I had no idea it was even a gas station. I've heard of Wawa everywhere, but like especially when I went out to like Camp McGregor or McGuire, excuse me,
Yep.
or Fort.
And their logo is
Camp
what
McGuire?
looks like
No.
a Canada goose, but it's actually a Wawa. That's what a Wawa is a type of goose.
Interesting.
Cal's going off for
DX
his
Commander, thank you for stopping by. Go
He's
ahead.
taking
Dave.
his afternoon nap. He's going to go take his afternoon nap over there.
Zoom must be busy this morning. We're stepping all over each other.
Yeah,
There's a huge delay.
I was going to say that K8MRD posted a video of some gas station convenience store that he
Buc-ee's.
went to. Oh my gosh, that thing was. I was like, I want a Buc-ee's.
I know. The beef jerky counter.
Yeah, that jerky
Oh, Buc-ee's.
looked real good.
Yeah. I got one across the street from my house. Want to do a live stream? I'll walk over there or what?
So most folks I think here know.
Go ahead.
W7HU, he posted in the chat. He says he's driving. He's not listening. But this guy, he streams every day for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and basically just works a pile up every single day. If you wanted to get some experience and hear somebody handle a pile up really well, as well as the folks trying to break a pile up, his channel is a good one to check out.
Excellent. And Alex will be the guest on Ham Nuggets. So he was on Ham Nuggets a couple of weeks ago describing his experiences in leaving Cuba and how he actually used ham radio to save the lives of himself and others. And this time we're going to actually talk about how he's got his stream set up and the equipment that he uses and what he thinks about it and get more into details, because we kind of like hit the 1 hour mark and like there's still 1,000 questions. We still have so much more to talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about the Mercury amp. I know he talks about it a lot on the live stream, but just to hear a few minutes about it. And one of the things, I haven't even Googled it or anything, so I'm being lazy. I wanted to check out to see if it can run off of 120 or 110 or if it's 220. And that's one thing I would not want to do is run a 220 to my ham shack, just because it would be a huge pain in the butt.
Don, good luck on the snow thrower today, and we will see you on the team replay.
Yeah, be safe out there, Don.
I don't know what kind of power it runs off of, but I am working on one of those Ameritron 811AHs, whatever the model number is. I haven't seen it for like 4 months. Mike N8YO has it, and I'm getting it from Matt AE4MQ.
Mm-hmm.
And it would run off a 120, house.
Yeah, I've seen some of those, and that's for what, 800 watts. Is that what you said?
It's a 4-tube 811. So I think it really depends on what you feed it with, and I'm not sure what its total limit is, because again, I saw it once, I went nice amp, and then it didn't work, and it's out for repairs. So
Chuck says it'll run off of 120.
yeah, good. So that amp had, like I said, it's a 4-tube amp. It had 3 811s and one 572B. So the 572B, as far as I understand, is a more durable, heavyweight tube than the 811, but I could be wrong. And it was a mismatch. So the thing had issues.
But it's not too difficult to replace tubes, though, is it?
No, I mean, it's like changing a light bulb. You pull it out of the socket, you put a new one in, but they're supposed to be balanced. And I don't know, it's hard to get balanced tubes. And I think Mike and I talked about just getting tubes just to get it up and running, because Mike is under the impression that it's just the tubes that were mismatched that was really causing all the problems, and it couldn't figure itself out. But also, apparently, they're like super easy. It's like 3 parts to an amp. So we'll see.
Interesting.
It was just that weird situation where I don't know enough about amps, and Matt wasn't comfortable selling me a broken amp. He didn't want to lose the money on the broken amp, and I didn't want to give him more money than a broken amp was worth.
Right.
So, we will see it in the future. It will turn around. That's the good thing about the ham radio community, is a lot of us are really mature and really friendly, and we can handle situations like that, like grown folks. It's nice.
Yeah, well, I thought about trying an amp out from time to time, but for me, it feels like there's a layer of complexity there that I just don't want to deal with. And it's probably just me being a big old
Sissy.
nervous Nelly. Yeah, sissy.
A Nancy boy.
Yeah, where I'm always like, well, I don't want to do this, and what if this, and I should probably just get over that.
So my impressions on broken items, and it really depends. First off, how much does that thing cost? Can I replace it? Is it worth the cost of the education? So like the Commodore 64s that I repair, you can get them somewhere in the neighborhood of $100. For $100 for a live working electronics experiment with a humongous community to help you out if you get stuck, and worst case scenario, you're out $100. That's why I dove into them and started repairing them, because it's fun. And I've learned a ridiculous amount of stuff in the process of just learning how to repair them.
That's awesome, and that's kind of why I always tell folks to just, if you're into ham radio or amateur radio, pick any aspect of it and try to homebrew or make something, and it's going to turn out terrible at first, and just keep at it, right? And then you just keep learning.
Yeah, I want to say that QRP Guys has a radio kit that's like below $50 to build. And it's going to be every bit of a $50 kit build radio, but at the end of the day, you're going to learn about, first IF and amplifiers. And, you always hear the big boys at the club say, yeah, well, I was working on my radio and I blew out the finals. And okay, well, what does that mean? Well, realistically, the finals is a small handful of transistors, and you can desolder them and put new ones on. It's not that big of a deal. But when you hear, I blew out the finals and I had to send it back, it just seems like this really big, insurmountable task that you have no idea what you're doing, and you're in for a ton of expenses. So go for it. It's really easy. QRP Guys, DSB FT8 radio. I want to say it's less than $50.
Man, let's check it out. I'm not Chuck said he had good luck with his homebrew InFed half wave. And that's the thing, is like antennas are actually pretty simple to make if you get over the initial fright of putting them together. Just start off, building a simple dipole and see how well it works. Like I think a lot of people get into ham radio, and then they're saying stuff like, well, I want an antenna that does everything. It works on all the bands, and I just want to buy it and put it up, and I don't have to put it high in the air. And
okay, get one.
Right. And good luck with it. But if you really just start out building something, a simple antenna, and testing it out, playing around with it, the amount of knowledge that you learn about takeoff angles and radiation patterns and impedance and just all the stuff that goes into that, it's cool, and you can learn a lot, and you can learn a lot relatively fast.
You got this situation where you have the ability to make an antenna, right? And maybe the first time you make it works, and like you said, it's just maybe not it's not the greatest antenna. Maybe there's a little problem with the impedance, like you say. But that actually kind of gives you maybe a little bit more drive to continue on and try to better it. So your first antenna might be a coat hanger, right? The next antenna might be a piece of wire. Then you're working up to actual like aluminum rods. So not only does it give you that ability to keep tinkering with things, but you're continually gaining that knowledge, like you say. Every antenna that you make, you're going to learn something every time.
Exactly. And the antenna analyzer is the key to success with building antennas and playing with antennas and modifying antennas. And they're down in the $50 range now with the Nano VNA.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
Nano
they are.
VNA is not approachable to somebody who's new with this stuff. But they're once you play around with it, you're kind of easy to learn to use to get the information that you need out of them. I recommend them to anybody who's in ham radio. They're small, they're cheap, they're portable.
If this ape can figure it out, any ape can figure it out.
Exactly, and then you can hook them up to your computer, and so I've got one sitting right here that gets a ton of use because I just plug it into the USB docking station that I've got, hook an antenna up that's coming out of my MFJ pass through, and I can look at not patterns. I can look at graphs,
Smith charts and graphs and everything. And yeah, like the extra test is where you start getting into the Smith charts, and they make sense. And then you put that book down and you pass the test, and you never touch it again, and you forget everything that you knew about Smith charts. Because they tell you what the Smith chart charts, but I don't remember them saying anything about what you're actually supposed to look for. But again, like I said, you close the book after you pass the test. So, you just got to keep at it.
Yeah, and the Smith charts are useful, and I think that that's really probably more for advanced type antennas that you're making, where you want to make sure that your inductance and capacitance are matching, and you might have to add elements like in the way of like a induction coil or something like that. I actually bought this meter. I don't know where it is. It's around here somewhere. An inductance meter. I want to try shortening my end-fed half wave, and I need to build an inductor for that. So we'll see how that works. I'll probably bust out a Smith chart when I do it.
So what kind of inductor are you trying to build?
It's just a coil around a piece of PVC pipe. That I got a piece of PVC pipe sitting around here somewhere that's actually bigger than the PVC pipe that they recommend that you use on the plans. But I'm sure I can figure it out with the meter. Basically, I need like a 34, 35 microhenry inductor. And then so the thing with end-fed half-wave antennas, which are awesome because they can be mostly resonant on a variety of bands, and they're really useful that way. The challenge that you get with them is that your radiation pattern as it comes off the antenna. So if you cut one for 40 meters, like 66 feet or something like that, it'll be harmonically resonant on 20, and then you can use it on 20. But your radiation pattern that you're getting on 20 is degraded, might not be the right word, but it's a compromised radiation pattern than what you would get off of an end-fed half wave or a dipole antenna cut at 20 meters. So what you do is you build an end-fed half wave for 20, then you put this induction coil in, and then you add more wire to it to get you to 40. And what that does is that your radiation pattern stops at the induction coil, and then you get the true pattern for a 20-meter antenna. So I probably won't notice any difference, but that's what I want. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, but what did it cost you to play with that? A couple of hours worth of learning something new you didn't know very much about?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on building a doublet myself, and I don't fully understand the ladder line component of the doublet. Everything else makes perfect sense, and K6ARK is talking about, and he might still be in the chat, he's talking about a 5/8, I want to say it's a 5/8 wave double extended ZEP for 2 meters, and he's got like 3 or 4 inches of ladder line as the matching segment. And I built one without the ladder line on, and it matches fine. So I don't understand the difference. And that's me. I literally don't understand it.
PC4 AD is talking about some Swede. It looks like says a Swede did a video that was really useful on Smith charts.
And it was actually Andreas Spies is the guy's name. Spies. He's the guy that wears the weird goggles.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does a lot of maker kits, right? Like what do they call it? Arduinos and stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't peg him as being a ham, but it's actually really funny because I do vintage computing stuff on my channels on Saturday. My channel on Saturdays, got the plural in the wrong part of the sentence there, and I wind up running into a lot of people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm a ham too," and it's like all of these you know, like there's 4 or 5 different retro computing YouTube channels who have reached out to me and said, yeah, I used to be a ham, or I still am a ham, or I let my ham license go, or I'm still an active ham, I just don't get on the air anymore. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool.
Adam's talking about the phasing gets the pattern good on a 5/8 wavelength element. Yeah, I think it was Cal was playing around with 5/8 wavelengths for the Nebula originally, but
Yeah.
I think he changed that. He went back to quarter wave or half wave, right?
So Adam's saying that the ladder line that you add to the 5/8 wave is what helps to shape the pattern. Cool. So that would be some modeling in MMANA would show me the differences between the with and without patterns. And that's where it goes over my head.
Yeah, I play around with that a little bit, but I need more practice with that software.
It's actually surprising how many
I didn't
people
realize
are
that
hams.
I was gonna say I didn't realize 8-bit guy was a ham.
It makes sense with some of the things
he's
I've seen, but he never really talks about it.
I know, right? He's sitting at 1.23 million subscribers. He's
Yeah.
doing something right. But you know, you look at that though, and if he's really into ham radio, he has the ability just to reach out to so many more people. You know, so it's kind of like one of those things. Like maybe we reach out to 8-bit guy and say, like, do you have any interest in talking ham with us?
Yeah. I know a guy that does weekly
Just
interviews with hams and might be able to talk about what excites him about the hobby.
I think this would be a good step forward in the hobby, and where we want to go is to get more people interested. So maybe reach out to him.
Yeah, what you see though is a lot of times the electronics folks aren't so much like radio enthusiasts, but they need to use RF as part of a electronic project that they're working on, and so they'll get their
That's
license.
And that's exactly a reason to get licensed. You know, we sit here and say, yeah, we just love radio, but there's a lot of people who need it for the projects they're working on. You know, drones and, like you say, the electronic components, and I'm sure a lot of people too, just to get a better understanding of how things work. I'd be curious to know why he got involved.
I don't remember who it was. I watched some interview with somebody, and they were talking about how they got into ham radio, and they said that they were working in college on a project. They had to build a solar powered car, and they needed a way to get data from the car back to their control station around the battery levels, and they ended up getting licensed as ham radio operators and used radio.
Excellent. So they're talking
It
about
seems like
loggers
there's a lot
for
of people in the
Android
chat.
and iOS, and K6ARK says use outdlog for iOS, and I have used VLS logger on Android.
Well, Hamlog was removed from the Apple Play Store, and I think that caused an uproar.
Big tech. Apparently, Hamlog is a supporter of the alt-right or something. No, I'm kidding. I have no idea.
Right.
It's the only way to get removed from big tech.
Speaking from experience, when you try to upload a application that you developed into the App Store, there's like iOS and Apple in particular is so hard to get everything approved. They go through everything with a fine, what do they call it, fine-tooth comb. And if it's not exactly to their standards, they're going to boot you out. That's probably what happened.
Yeah. That's not funny though.
Which actually gives, no, it's kind of unfortunate, but it does give others the opportunity if Hamlogs is willing to. It gives other opportunity to make it like an open source logging software where everybody can contribute and fix the issues that arise there, so it can go back in the store. But they probably don't want to do that.
Yeah, it also depends on where you're activating or working. If you've got a Wi-Fi signal, there is cloud-based logging, or you could also use VNC to remote control your home computer.
That's a good point.
And when you start to get into protocols like that, I mean, one thing programmed wrong, they consider that to be, a serious flaw or some kind of bug, and then they'll just take it right out right away.
Yep.
Well, Apple works really hard to protect that ecosystem, right?
Right. They also work real hard to what's the word? Ensure that there's not, and I'm not saying it is, so let me preface that, but they work really hard to make sure that there's not useless apps in the App Store. And a lot of times what they deem useless isn't useless to us. So if they see that there's 80 other loggers out there, they might actually start rejecting other loggers who are trying to submit logs.
And like it or not, Apple's working towards an operator audience as opposed to a hacker audience or a tinkerer audience. And so there's all of that that's involved in their ecosystem that they're trying to protect. They want you to be able to pick up the phone and have a specific experience with that phone. And that's why they do what they do. More power to them.
Well, yeah, this is going to sound dramatical, but like with the Android, the Google Play Store, any Yahoo can really basically upload an app, right? And you've seen before where they've had to do massive purges of apps because the security breach is baked into some of these things. I've had both. I've had a number of both Mac or Apple and Android phones. For me, I went with the Apple phone because it's simplistic, and my phone is not a convenience. It's actually something I need to have for my job. I'm on the phone all the time. I get the notifications and alerts from various automation systems at work. And I need to have constant access to email and tools like that. I do have a number of Android tablets and stuff like that that I use for playing around or tinkering with and things like that. So I think they both have their place. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I can't afford to have downtime on my phone.
Right.
And that's kind of how I landed on the Apple phone.
I'm in that weird spot right now where my phone is almost old enough that I should replace it. Because what I usually wind up doing is I usually wind up opening it up, trying to repair it, making some repairs, and getting like another 3 months worth of lifespan out of it. But I'm thinking I want to retire this one while it's still a completely working unit and it's like 2.5 years old, and get a new one. So I have one to play with radio and one to play with, one to work with my job.
Yeah, I was going to use an old iPhone because how I have the problem with the eye in the sky camera, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I wonder if I could just use an old iPhone up there and work that. The problem is it doesn't have clean HDMI out, so I can't feed it into that. And boy, did that burn me up because I unhooked everything and wired it up and did all that.
So there's two solutions to that. One is an IP webcam app for your phone. And the other one, and I don't know that the camera is the right camera for the job, but there's a solution to the problem that you just described. The other one is obs.ninja. Is a website you go to.
Yeah, so that I was looking at that. The problem is that like the way that this mount is, I can't manipulate the phone easily. Like if I have to go to the website and log in and all that other thing, anything other than just powering it on requires a adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just another thing that I got to figure out.
Because I've used the IP webcam app on the Android and it worked pretty well.
What's the I'm sorry, I kind of missed it for just a second there, but is there a protocol called RTSP that you would be able to consider using? Or would that not work for you?
It beats the heck out of me. I don't know what you're talking about, son.
RTSP is like a over the network kind of protocol where you could stream your video feed over the network. So if you had like a security camera, you had RTSP enabled, I know, for example, there's a really cheap webcam out right now that you could buy at like Home Depot, and you could hack
that Wise one, right?
RTSP. Wise, yeah. There you go. And so then you could do streaming over the internet, and OBS allows you to import the RTSP. I think it does RTSP streams, and then you could have and this was super fisheye, and so that's where I didn't like this one. But
so getting real technical on us here, the way that your camera looks at your desk, first off, you kind of got that wave look to it, which is that fisheye. It actually might even be reversed. And then second is the ability to control the thing. There's a lot of physical user interface, user experience stuff that doesn't work well with recording studios.
Dan actually made the point, and he's right. OBS doesn't do the RTSP directly. You have to do it through VLC and then use the VLC importer.
RTSP, first used by Real Player. Nice. Some things don't die.
Yeah, the Wise Access app that you need to have, there was a firmware hack out there, and the firmware hack allowed you to, I think, not even use the application anymore. And the reason I know this is my buddy is tired of his stuff going to wherever it's going to go, right? Mm-hmm. So So he made that hack, and he was pretty excited that it had the capability of our TSP, but also didn't have to use that app anymore.
Yeah, we're in this weird part of the world where weird time of life where as a manufacturer it's easier to create and support something that's cloud based, but as a consumer, like our level of consumer, we want to be able to have stuff that we have more control over and more access to.
I think we're in a weird position right now.
Yeah.
And what I mean by weird position is these manufacturers have known that this was happening for a while. And, the general public, probably not all of us hams, we're probably a little bit of a step ahead, right? Because we kind of know technology. But the general public is now starting to realize that this whole time they've been getting played, their data's been getting sold, and their data's everywhere. And I think now there's probably a lot of people thinking we're at the point like, what does it even matter where my data goes because it's all out there already? Like how do we backtrack from this colossal mess?
Yeah, well, what's funny is I mentioned this the other day. So I have Instagram, and it's tied to a different email address than YouTube. And what was crazy is that my Instagram feed said, "Hey, Ham Radio TV, Jason out there in California, just posted to Instagram, and you may know him." How would it know that, right? Unless there's some sort of data aggregation that's happening somewhere that has
Yep.
multiple attributes of my online profile, and then somehow applies an AI to it to figure out that, hey, these guys probably know each other, but he's not sub to them.
You know, you're absolutely right. And Dan KV2 FMW, he who knows databases, he probably is just like, yeah, they linked a couple of keys up in a couple of different databases, and they were able to associate this key with that key, and they were able to figure out that these are both you.
That's how they get you.
And oh boy, it's aggravating, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a whole lot of new faces in the chat. Welcome. This is awesome. I love having new faces on the channel. I love having new engagement and reaching out to new people. If you're not subscribed, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And also in the description for this video, there are links to Smoking Ape's channel down below and Ham Radio Dude's channel over there. So give those guys a subscribe also.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. A couple of years ago, I went to a big tech conference that was put on by a company called Cognizant. They're a large IT company out of India, and they have a very strong. Actually, I think they're headquartered out of New Jersey. Very strong presence in the United States. And the key speaker talked about this concept called a digital halo that surrounds you, and folks don't even realize it. And it's really made up of all the different things that you carry around on you that emit signaling. And one of the things they were talking about is that like when you actually go into a Walmart, for example, the sound system in Walmart can play an audible tone that if you have the Walmart app installed on your phone and actively running, can hear that signal, tell where you are in the store, and then actually start pushing coupons to you or advertisement to you about the toothpaste that you might like to buy or something like that. It's really crazy. And they went so far as to talk about, basically being IP connected and location tracking. So like if you took a trip to like a city like New York, that where businesses want to get is that once you're leaving the airport, it pushes you an alert saying, "Hey, do you want to schedule an Uber? Do you want to make reservations?" They'll know which hotel you checked in, and they'll be able to actually tell you the best way to get there. Push technology, not you pulling that technology. And it sounds fantastic from a consumer perspective because you're like, "Hey, this is easy for me. It's making my life less complex." But really, what it does is it puts a vendor's hand in your pocket.
Yeah, it's really great and at the same time really creepy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It definitely could work in the favor of investigative techniques. Now, I come from a standpoint of being somebody who used to at least consider investigations. I've went to school for cell phone investigations and stuff like that. And you look at somebody who goes to the store, right? And maybe they're getting those push notifications. That's all contained in a database somewhere. So let's say a guy goes to rob his local Walmart, right? So he's been to that Walmart many times before, and he gets those push notifications you're talking about. It's going to be in the database or in the log somewhere that he received those push notifications at 4:00, right? And so by trying to access those logs and trying to get that data, you might be able to solve who was at this robbery location at what time and how long they were there for. You might even be able to go as far off as saying which way did they leave, or then you could do cell phone tracking and everything as well. So it is scary, And it's also very beneficial, or could be beneficial. Now you get to the point of, hey, where's the line drawn, and when is crossing the line?
Yep. Yep. With
Yeah,
great
well,
power comes great responsibility.
I had read a thing in the news, and this was a while back, where a school was vandalized, and there's a lot of graffiti that I guess you would consider hate graffiti sprayed all over the school. And they wanted to catch the people who did it and prosecute it as a hate crime, because you get a lot more press if you call something a hate crime. And none of the kids were talking. They could not figure out who had done it. And what the police did is they went in and checked the Wi-Fi access point logs in the
Yep.
DHCP registration, and they were able to find out that the students were, when they went to the school, they were students of the school. And when they went there, their phones registered with DNS and got DHCP IP addresses on their phones, so they knew exactly who was there and where they were, because of the Wi-Fi mesh would tell them which device they were being served content from.
Yeah.
And then what they did is they picked the kid that was most likely to break, and they brought him in and had him sit down and explain the whole thing. Basically he folded and told on everybody, and they all had gotten in trouble for it.
Yeah, tower dumps could be the same way too. I mean, it's all the same, right? The router, the tower dumps. Tower dumps are the same way too, though. You just have to be careful with tower dumps, because they don't always go to the closest cell phone tower. They might go to one that is, say, 4 miles further away, but it has a better signal to your location, or for whatever reason your phone chose that one. But with it, you could still continue to track maybe where somebody was going, given what towers they were jumping to at the time.
Yep.
Correct.
So it's pretty interesting stuff.
And then there's this, you mentioned it with Digital Halo. There's this fingerprinting technology. So you turn off all the cookies and everything in your browser and all that other kind of jazz, and they still know that you use Firefox and you're on Mac OS and your screen resolution is 1600 by 1200, and you have the following 7 plugins installed, and your IP address connection is coming from either a private VPN gateway or a local address, and then they take that and make a fingerprint for you. And so even if you have everything turned off, they can still figure out who you are. And it's kind of like it's good and bad, just like everything else in the world. So we got a couple of things to catch up on real quick. Ham Radio Dude, thank you for the 30-06 super chat. I appreciate that. And Jim is a new member to the channel. Welcome, Jim. There is a join button right below the video if you want to support the channel and help keep more content like this coming around. Dorset Drone Guy says he just found this channel from Astro Leah's channel, which he found via DX Commander's channel. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, just for information, I didn't send that super chat. I think it was China.
Well, China, welcome. Glad to have you here. And then Dorset Drone Guy says he's a web developer and they track everything. So he agrees. And he says he's getting ready for his test. What are you using to study, and what kind of score are you getting on your practice tests? I recommend hamstudy.org, and then hamstudy.org/sessions.
Yeah, the Ham Study app is like cheating. It's that good. Like it's like cheating. There's no doubt in my mind. So I always tell anybody, if you're thinking about getting licensed or upgrading, go ahead and download that app and play around with it, and you'll be fine.
And I would suggest if you're somewhere around 90 to 95% on your practice test, get it scheduled for your session to take your test, and then you need 75% to pass. So if you're at 90%, your test day jitters plus just general human memory issues, you'll get 75%, no problem. You'll get your ticket, no problem at all.
Yeah, I think it's actually the jitters is what gets most people.
I was just going to say the same thing, Ape. It's like, don't be afraid to go in there. And, I think we talked about it last week, or maybe it was somebody else. Everything blends together. But you sit here and you tell people that you're going to take a test, and they do get worried. And that's a very good point, whoever made it. It's not a traditional test like, oh my gosh, my whole world's going to end if I don't pass this test. It's just go take a test, show that you have some kind of knowledge, and you'll be fine. Especially if you're getting 95s all the time or 90s all the time. Yeah, you're going to be fine, right? Yeah, I think the whole test thing, as somebody mentioned last week, is definitely overhyped.
Oh, okay. So he's in the UK and he's using Essex ham. That is awesome. I really like the foundation test that the UK does. Um, Part of their licensing process is that you have to make a QSO, if I recall correctly. I'm not from the UK, so I've only seen this on YouTube. Um, but you actually have to get on the air. So immediately when you are finished, you are over your mic fright and ready to go and make some contacts. It's awesome.
I'm going to step out for just a second. I'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Yep. Chaz says he's testing for amateur extra on 220, currently at 76 to 80% on the test. That is fantastic, Chaz. Yeah, that amateur extra is just a mountain of knowledge to study. It's like 700 questions, and then
Yeah,
they
it's a
pull
big
50 out of them.
Yeah, good luck on it, Chaz.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's what I think is that most people just get the nerves get the best of them when they go in there. And what's kind of weird about ham radio is, like, I'll freely admit that I consider myself very novice. There's plenty of things that I need to learn, that I need to know more about. Um, is that there's so much intimidation around people's knowledge level in amateur radio. And a lot of times hams can be extremely judgmental if somebody doesn't know something, even if it's something that seems fundamentally simple, and you have questions about it. Like, when you find a helpful, experienced ham, that's like fantastic. But so many people are like, "Well, didn't you read the manual?"
Hmm.
Or this
I
is
did. It was 800 pages.
right. Or people are like, "This is simple math." Um, now I'm nerdy. I'll sit around and I'll take a look through manuals and read technical books and stuff like that. And then I'll just use, if somebody asks a question, that's when I'll say, "Hey, I've read this and it helped me understand, but
Mhm.
I'm fine talking about it." But again, I'm not considering I'm not the Pope of amateur radio, so don't take my word as gospel. Um, and I can tell you about my experiences, or my perspective, but do some research.
Yeah, and I'm a hands-on learner. I'm a very kinetic learner. So for me to sit down with a book and read and absorb with no physical contact to something, I learn more playing around with one of the guys in the club on a QSO party in 4 hours than I learned in the entire tech manual. And that's not to say the tech manual is bad. That's just my style of learning. I'm a very, very hands-on style of learner. I didn't understand how balance worked until I made one, and
Yeah,
now I can tell everybody how they work.
no, totally agree with you. You learn a lot. Like, I actually bought an HF radio before I was a licensed general, just because I wanted to play around with the technology. And you do learn a lot just by hands-on and tinkering and stuff like that, as opposed to reading. When I got the technician book, and I started reading it, it didn't make any sense to me because I didn't have a strong background in amateur radio or even electronics. I was like, what the heck is all this stuff? And that's where, a lot of times people get upset at me, but I take the approach of, for your technician license, just download that app and take the practice test over and over again. You'll memorize the answers, you'll start to see patterns, and then just go take the test, and then build your skill set, playing around and talking to local repeaters. Um, it's just my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of fear about, the whole mic fright thing is understandable. Like, what do I say when I get on the air? And hams have some of the hams have created that problem, and some of the hams embrace it and say it's okay. Like, if you turn on HF and you go to 7185, you're going to get the Oh Miss Net, and they say, looking for calls, and you put your call out, and it's a new call. And first off, everybody's excited that you're a new ham on the net, and they welcome you and they tell you how the whole thing works, and they kind of guide you through the process and handhold. You pull out your handy talkie and you connect to the local repeater and you say, "Hello, this is Kilo Mike 9 Golf," and they're like, "We don't use phonetics on repeaters, and you don't say hello on a repeater." Like, well, guess I'm not going to get on this repeater anymore. Like, we've
Yeah.
created that problem.
Well, we actually have a pretty big repeater here that runs a daily net, and they actually want you to identify phonetically. So they tell you at the beginning, they're like, identify slowly and phonetically. Repeat your call sign. They have a pretty strict thing of rules, but there's participation in those nets really, really help you build your skills in just being able to talk and communicate and understand when to key up. And I'll always encourage it. And then when you get on HF, a lot of people are like, I don't want to talk because I'm scared. I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I'm going to do the wrong thing. One of the things I've recommended to folks lately is that go to POTA.us and look for spotters. or people who are spotting. And they'll be happy to talk to you no matter what you say, right? Because they're out there trying to make contacts, trying to collect points. It's not some guy sitting in his basement waiting for you to mess up when somebody else calls CQ. But those guys are wanting actively to talk to somebody, and they're not going to they're not going to care if you say something incorrectly or do something incorrectly. They just want to make that contact, and they're going to be appreciative. And that's a good way. That's a good way to get some experience as well.
I think there's a big fear of getting over that mic fright, if you will. And I think it comes down to amateur radio is a very fun hobby, and we all like to have a good time, right? But there are a few people in the hobby that maybe some of these new people meet, and they make it seem like if you key up and you say something incorrectly, like you'll be scolded for life. I'll be first to tell you firsthand that that's not true. You make mistakes, you move on. Don't worry about it, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, the thing is that for every 100 hams, if there's one bad one, it's that bad experience is the one that's going to stick with you.
You know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, and I'll let you finish in just a second, but you have such a good point there. And I got to tell you, as a YouTuber who makes these videos, when I get some negative comments in my videos, some of them I could brush off, but there's some of them where those guys are just aiming to upset you. They're intentionally aiming to upset you. And I think they do the same thing on ham radio too. It's like they don't want anybody in the hobby but themselves. I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out that it continues to happen, whether you're a new ham or an old ham. It's very unfortunate though. I'm sorry. Please continue, man.
No, you're right. And with the comments, people were like, well, you said that wrong, and you say toroid, and
oh my gosh.
You know, I'm just like, I'm not going to say what I would normally say, but you know, I'm just like, look, man, I don't even pay attention to it anymore. Like there was one I got yesterday that really bugged me, and I was getting ready to fire back, but then I was like, you know, it's just, that means that they got me.
That means they've won.
Yeah. And just forget about it. And that's what I tell people is that, you know, somebody's going to be a jerk about stuff, and just, you gotta just look the other way, or just, you know, I think I just lost my internet.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't see you. Oh, there you are. You're back.
It's just, you know, just ignore them. They're just jerks that would never, you know, the keyboard warriors, right? The tough guy behind a keyboard, but they would never say that stuff to you in real life.
Right. And if they want to say it to me in real life, hey, I'll be at Ham Bench, and whenever we get back to Ham Bench.
Yeah, I know. Right. I'll be wearing my ham radio dude hat.
I'll be wearing my come take it shirt.
Well, here it is. I did invite you.
But the whole point is they're those trolls, if you will, they're going to continually be in the hobby no matter what you do. The best thing you can do is just ignore them. And it is one of those things where you got to get hard, otherwise they're going to win, like Ape says.
Right.
Spin the big knob, spin the dial. Can we start a YouTube Bunch boxing area? Yes. That would be funny.
So I was having a hard time processing that because I've been doing these unboxing videos. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Oh, boxing. Yeah.
Nobody puts dude in a box.
No. You're posting that tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, there's another one coming out tomorrow night, and there should be one more next week. But yeah.
We should do some plug-in. Don't you have something coming up to you next Friday night?
2/5. Yeah, wow. That's next Friday? I better get on the stick with that. So what I'm going to do, January 14th, I set my radio up to decode SSTV signals. And I just let it download all day long for as long as the band was open. It was 20-meter band. 14230 is the frequency to go to that's got a lot of activity. There are SSTV frequencies on other bands, but I've found that the 20-meter band is the one that's the most active in my area of listening ability. And so now I've got a little time-lapse video of all of the images that came out on January 14th. And I'll do a real quick opening tutorial on how to get it up and running and listen and download images and make images and send them. And then we'll just all hang out in the video chat at the end of Thursday Night Ham Radio on the premiere, just laughing at the images that people have sent. I'm going to say it's a little PG-13. And then Friday at 8 p.m. Central, I'm going to do a live stream where I'm going to have my radio set up, and I'm going to share out the downloading, and I'm going to try, because it's going to be late at night, I'm going to try and be on 40. and have people send SSTV images while we're hanging out and chatting about it live. So, you can participate by sending an image to me, and it will be displayed on stream. So, PG-13 or lower, please. But,
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get when you cast that net.
Well, you do have to identify yourself when you do it. So,
You know what? That might be another good shirt. SSTV is like a box of chocolates.
exactly.
You actually bring up a kind of cool point there. That sounds like a really good time to everybody kind of participate in SSTV night and watch along, but also could play along. Another one that we might consider is like JS8Call.
Yeah.
If people in the chat would want to do JS8Call as well, we could do that one week.
I've been thinking about a learn to JS8Call because I don't know enough about JS8Call. Like, I know fundamentally how it works, and Jordan and I have actually done an interview on my channel of some stuff that he earlier last year at the YouTubers Hamfest.
Yeah.
Some software that he was releasing and some improvements that he was making. And yeah, I don't know enough about it. We have a humongous knowledge base here on screen and in the chat, and that would be cool to pull that hangout out. So we'll have to make one of those also.
Well, like with JS8Call, like I've played around with it a little bit. Most of the content that you see are like, here's how you get your JS8Call up and running. I still don't necessarily know if I understand the utility of JS8Call. Where people are like, well, you can send somebody a message, but can I do that with WinLink email?
Yeah, so JS8Call, the difference, and it's a nuance. You can send a message with PSK31. You can send a message with Olivia. You can send a picture message with SSTV. You can send a signal report with FT8. You can bounce signals off the moon with JT65. And you can send keyboard-to-keyboard chats back and forth with JS8Call. So yeah, why bother is the first question. But there's more to it than that.
Like does any other protocols do heartbeat? And what heartbeat is essentially, as I recall, and Don would know, N5 SKT, but it essentially allows you to contact somebody else through another person or relay a message, essentially, right? So if I can't quite hit Don, I might go through you to talk to Don.
Mm-hmm.
But like WinLink email does that, right?
Does it?
And I'm not trying to hate on JS8Call by any stretch, but people are like, this is the prepper mode. This is what you need for end of days, boy. And I just, to me, the likelihood that somebody's going to be on the radio when something bad happens is slim.
So that's not what JS8Call is about. There's a solution to that built into JS8Call.
Yeah, well, I'm also saying that, like, even with JS8Call, the likelihood that somebody's going to be on with JS8Call is even slimmer.
Right.
And is that person really going to be able to provide value to me in a situation like a grid down, or something along those lines where I just don't see it.
So if I wanted to send a message to Ham Radio Dude and he was not on the air and you were, and I have a propagation path to you, Ape, I can send the message out into the ether, out into the universe, and you will receive it and store it. And the next time that your station gets a heartbeat from Dude's station, you will forward my message to him. And then he can relay back to me through any number of other hams until it finally gets to me.
So with that storage of that message, is that like volatile? Like if I turn off my Raspberry Pi, does that message go away, or do I need to stay up and online to store that message?
I would almost guarantee that Jordan put a timestamp on it that he doesn't want that message sitting around for 6 months waiting to be sent, but I could be 100% wrong on that.
Yeah.
Jim KN4 YCD says, nope, not at all. But unfortunately, I don't remember what we're talking about. Right. Unfortunately, I don't remember, but he might have actually had a little bit to say about
bring it on back. Tell us some more, Jim.
Yeah.
Oh, he's talking about
emergency. Yeah.
Because a lot of people are just like, this JS8Call is changing the game for emergency communications, and I just don't see it. But I could be missing something, right?
Well, that's the thing is, if it's getting you into radio, then more power. It's awesome.
I was going to say, I think that's why we should take an evening and evaluate it and kind of play with it. Have everybody on the stream jump on and see what we can do and kind of how it works and get ideas. Then we could reevaluate. Is there any use for this in emergency communications, or is it just fun? And if it's just fun, that's cool too, right?
Yeah, because I mean, there are even people who are like, Whisper for emergency communications, and you can't even send. I mean, Whisper is good for testing your antenna, testing propagation, and signaling. But I think FT8 can fill that gap too, right? Now it's hard to see in a real situation, right? When if say you have limited internet, like I can't go to PSK Reporter or WhisperNet and see where my propagation is. So again, I'm not 100% sure that I see the value there either.
So you can use FT8 raw by itself to determine propagation from your station. You just turn it to 20 meters and hit decode and wait. And eventually you will see, I can hear all of this, but not that,
And that doesn't reassure that you'll be able to transmit out, but at least you know where you're receiving, which could be valuable.
The band's open or where it's open to.
For the longest time, I thought Japan was just ignoring me. They're like, that's ham radio, dude, again.
They are, the entire country.
Turn him off.
Yeah, there was a memo sent out in the country of Japan. Don't talk to ham radio, dude. I think it's written in their
test.
Their rules and regulations. Don't contact ham radio, dude.
That's funny.
The last Red Cross disaster drill was testing using WinLink capabilities, or testing WinLink capabilities.
And I need to learn more about WinLink, but to me, that's just basic client server email, right? And then, now, granted, you're dependent upon infrastructure that's not yours in order to pass that message. So,
but you always are.
Yeah. So I also understand that the utility of that in a true disaster environment might not be what you want either.
All right, we just got another YouTuber who signed in as us for Zoom.
What do you mean?
So I just stole it back.
Is there a stream possible happening here? Let me check. You guys continue on. I'll check the schedule.
The only one I know about is Red Summit RF coming up tonight with his all portable discussion zone at 5:30 p.m. Central.
I don't think that's on the schedule. Oh, you're saying that somebody
see anything on the schedule?
Somebody logged into Zoom.
Okay, I'm like, what is he talking about?
So we, as the YouTubers bunch, have a shared Zoom account that we've all chipped in some money for and used back and forth between us to help bring this content to you guys. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but somebody just signed in. So if Zoom goes away, I will quickly recover it and make do.
But it didn't tell you who it was, right? It just said the generic ham radio account.
Yep.
Although I think Red Summit RF is typing right now on content. So let me go ahead and try to answer that if he does respond.
All right, cool. Thanks, dude.
Well, you're over in
you guys can continue on.
And Jason is up after that. Is that right, Ape? On the schedule tonight?
I'm pulling the schedule up right now, and it looks like I'm having problems.
You got to get your kids some DVDs, man. Get your internet back.
So, it was Red Summit RF.
Yeah, the schedule for Sunday, the 31st, has nothing on it. So I'm not saying that there isn't anything scheduled. I'm just saying nobody told me to post it to the schedule.
Talk about why you have to pay for Zoom. So yeah, if you want to have a Zoom account, so if you want to have a Zoom meeting and there's only two people, yourself and a guest, it's free to use for as long as you want to use it. The minute you bring a third person in, there is a 40-minute timer that is retroactive to the beginning of when you started chatting. So that's what we pay for Zoom for, is to break through that paywall. And we use Zoom quite a lot, and I'm happy to support them. It's a fantastic product. I'm actually quite amazed at how well Zoom does what it does.
I think I got cut off there. I'm having internet problems.
So you were talking about who's on the schedule for tonight.
Yeah, the schedule's blank for today, so nobody told me that they were posting tonight. Doesn't mean that they're not, but it's just nobody told me to put anything on the schedule.
Yeah.
So maybe that lag was not Zoom. Maybe it was Ape earlier today. Anybody else have any questions out there as far as getting into the hobby? Anything you might need to know? Questions, concerns, things you just wonder. I guess it doesn't even need to be about radio. You could ask life questions and you'll get life advice from the Ape, T.O., and myself.
You never know what you're going to get.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like SSTV or advice from the ham guys up here. Which one's going to be better?
Well, let me tell you, son, the key to a successful marriage is
Right.
I I I probably couldn't give you that advice. If I give you guys marriage advice, you might want to run away.
best antenna for the loft. There we go. Dorset Drone Guy, best antenna for the loft.
Ooh,
And I guess that
that's a
loosely
good question.
translates into second or third story plus apartment, as what we would say in the US.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of again factors you can consider, but you have to also consider like what are your surroundings? Are you very noisy? I have an NFED up here in my attic, which is on the second, technically third
Is it an
story.
end fed or is it a 9
It
to 1
works.
random wire?
I'm sorry, it's a random wire.
I'm being pedantic on
It
purpose.
works okay, right?
Yeah, it works great.
But it's same thing, right? But it works great. Don't get me wrong, but it is noisy, and so if you're surrounded by a bunch of other apartment complexes, if you will, maybe that's not going to be the best solution. You got to get out there and kind of test things. If you are looking for HF, yeah, you might have a little bit less of options. You could even try to get something out there on your back patio. Now, Abe probably wants to say something. I saw him thinking his brain was cooking a little bit.
Well, yeah. So I mean, when I hear loft, I think apartment. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough one. You can look at mag loops. I don't like mag loops because of the low. I think it's called a high Q. They're only active on a very small sliver of bandwidth, so you're constantly having to fool with them. You can get an antenna that mounts out your window, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's why I was thinking. Like, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tio. I'll go after.
yeah, so the first thing is don't be afraid to just put an antenna up and learn what you don't know. Um, dude has a 9 to 1 antenna, which is what they call a random wire, which is anything but random. It's actually very specific sets of lengths, and it has a 9 to 1 balun on the end of it, and then you connect that into your radio, and it's actually laying on its side in his attic, and he's able to make contacts with it. I've seen people run wire around the perimeter of the ceiling in the room that they're in with their ham shack. I've seen a guy who I think what's that?
I was say your neighbors might hate you if you do that, though.
Yeah, I think there's a guy that holds
Especially if you have neighbors above you. But
the guy that holds the world record for the most amount of CW contacts made. It was a QST magazine article a while ago, and he has a wire that just goes. He's got a 3-story townhouse, and he has a wire that goes from the ham shack on the first floor, and it winds up the staircase and through every room of the house just to get enough in the air. And he's got like the record for CW contacts on 160 meter band.
Wow.
Another thing too is I've seen a lot of articles online where people do take that back patio. Now I'm assuming you have a slider patio if you live in an apartment complex, and I might be wrong, but a lot of people will take that patio area and they'll do the same thing that T.O. was talking about, where instead of running it on the ceiling, they'll run it like down, up, and over. So to essentially get the most wire that you have out of there too. And if it's 9 to 1 situation that you have to do like that, give it a shot, see what you could do. But you won't truly know how it's going to work in your situation until you actually get it out and try to operate.
And if you want a video on what a 9 to 1 is and what a random wire antenna is, TheSmokinApe has a video on the EARCHI, EARCHI 9 to 1 antenna that you can build. And then AstroLeah has a video that's got more views on the exact same antenna.
I went and took a look, and her POTA videos have more views than your POTA videos.
I hope so.
She's killing it. And why don't you talk a little bit about didn't the league reach out to her?
Yeah, so she's really just cranking out content and doing a fantastic job on that. The ARRL reached out to her and offered their support and seeing what they can do, and Leah reached out to them in return and said, I'd like to help support you guys as well. We've got a couple of ideas as to what we might be able to ask for, because it's kind of like, what does the ARL do that you could ask for? And one of the things that Leah has is this YL gang that her and a couple of friends that met in the Long Island CW Kids Club to learn Morse code have formed. They did a live stream a couple of days ago on AstroLeah's channel, and 3 of them are generals, and they're going to work on upgrading to extra, and one of them does not have a license, and she's going to work on getting her license. So they're going to work on, getting the books and studying up for that type of situation.
That's fantastic, and she should keep after it. It'd be a good thing for her.
I think it shows a lot from the ARRL to start reaching out to the youth like that, and really working on their YouTube game as well as their influencer game.
Yeah, there is a
Meaning,
new chief in the house, and David Minster is fantastic. He's apparently gets up every morning and checks out social media and sees what's going on in the hemisphere, and he's been reaching out to all of us, and it looks like they're going to start embracing the modern era over there, which is fantastic.
Well, it's not just them. It's also my understanding that retailers and vendors and manufacturers and all this are realizing that the power that the YouTube content creators are bringing to the amateur radio space, just with the communities that are getting built up and the knowledge that's being shared. And then also folks don't have access to clubs or to elmering. And so just the work that everybody who posts content, that's why I always tell everybody, no matter what you're doing, just post some content, and you're helping people out, and just how powerful it is.
When I first got into ham radio, I was actually really overwhelmed when I went to the club meetings, and the people who have been hams for a long time were making presentations, and I felt like I have no idea how I'm ever going to be able to get to where these guys are or be able to provide any value. And nobody would ever want to know what my opinion is. And maybe they still don't, I don't know. But I'm putting out videos, and I'm trying to, further the hobby, and I'm trying to make it look as fun as it is on the inside to the people on the outside, and bring more people in. So
just having a good time too.
You
right?
still
Go ahead, dude.
that delay is crazy. Sorry, man. I was just gonna say, do you still ever feel overwhelmed? And if you do, what do you do to try to reduce those nerves, if you will?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a longtime engineer by trade, and one of the things that you do to, and take it for what it's worth. I'm an old dude who's just talking about being successful here. Find a thing that overwhelms you, and break it up into little tiny consumable chunks. So, like the antenna in the loft question, get on 2 meters, go buy an antenna, look up on YouTube how to build antennas. Go build one, get an antenna analyzer. And those are all manageable chunks. Just don't be afraid. That's why the G90 is a good recommendation for our first radio. $450 some. I know it might be some for a lot of people, but it's half the price of a 7300. And if you plug a bad antenna in, the worst that you're out is $450. Go to a Hamfest and get a used radio for $200. Go to the Hamfest and get a used radio for $60 and repair it. Having that motivation to get to the other end of the project, like learning electronics by picking up a textbook and getting a breadboard is a lot harder than learning electronics by getting a Commodore 64 and taking a transistor off and putting a new one on, and all of a sudden it works,
It's funny too, because we're talking about being overwhelmed, and I reached out to Dave K, No One Left Behind, because he was in our stream the other day, and I saw him, so I said, welcome back, how you doing? And he said, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with everything that's coming in. And it's just interesting that we started talking about this at the same time, because now he's like, yeah, I feel overwhelmed too. And I will tell you, and you guys saw it last night. Now, me and T.O. and the Ape, we have conversations offline. And I was sending him a photo of a project I'm working on, and they started throwing suggestions at me in a positive way. And I'm like, hold on, guys. Hold on here. I'm a one-track mind guy, right? And if anything else happens, more suggestions are coming in. I'm like, wait, I'm getting overwhelmed. I have to take it a step at a time. But when I take it a step at a time like that, I find that I keep calm, I keep cool, and I tend to obtain more information that way. So it is probably, whenever you are overwhelmed like that, there's always got to be a way to calm your nerves, essentially. And there's no reason to be overwhelmed in ham radio. If you're not having fun anymore and you're continually getting overwhelmed, we would take a step back, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing to talk about is, are you overwhelmed? And I think all of us get overwhelmed whenever there's something new or new technology, or like maybe it's a new antenna, a new protocol. It's a piece of software that you're trying to get to play with. Like yesterday, Tio was saying, hey, does anybody want to play SSTV? And I'm like, I installed an SSTV app on a tablet and hooked my Baofeng to it to hear the space station when they were sending signals down. I've never even thought about messing with it on HF. And I felt overwhelmed. I'm like, I don't know how to do that, bro. And I would have to sit down and figure it out. One of the things is that when you get advice from people, a lot of times the perspective that you get is their perspective. Like a lot of hams are like, well, this is how I ham, and this is the way that you should ham. I'd say try to find somebody with a similar interest in doing whatever it is that you're particularly interested in, because everybody's going to give you an opinion that might not be in line with what you're trying to accomplish. And the other one is just start easy, get a HT and talk on a local repeater and check into the nets. And then start building that experience that way. You don't need to have a fancy HF station right out of the gate and making contacts into Europe or the Far East. It's awesome when you do that. There's no doubt about it, but that shouldn't be the start of your journey. That's a step in the journey. Just start off simple.
So K4NFP just dropped into the chat, and I was going to say, it's been a long time since we've seen any videos from you, bud. What's going on? Good to have you here. And then Marty says,
too, you talk about.
Go ahead, dude.
Sorry, man. This delay today. I don't know if it's me anymore or not. I was just gonna say, you talk about finding people who have the same interest in the hobby as you to continue on and maybe prevent yourself from being overwhelmed, which is a great suggestion. And another thing is too, and I think I've said it in my earlier videos, I started my YouTube channel because I have a hard time comprehending information if it's in a book or if it's in a manual. The only way I've ever learned is by actually physically touching things and tearing them apart or doing whatever. So on top of people who might have the same interest in you as you in the hobby, also maybe even like if you could find a couple people who have the same learning abilities as you. And that's a nice thing about YouTube. TO is going to learn a different way, then I'm going to learn a different way and teach a different way as well. So just keep that in mind if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, I mentioned I like hands-on learning, but I have to admit that I am definitely a read the book person. I don't know why. It just, I like to sit there with the actual physical book and read it. And a lot of times I don't have any idea what it's talking about, and I'll have to read it a few times before it clicks.
Yeah, and to be fair, just along the same lines too, I cannot read a book to save my life. I could read it 30 times and I'll give up because I just don't understand it. It's not until I start actually applying whatever theories there are that I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And I recognize just how difficult it is to learn that way in this hobby, because you're always supposed to read the book and have all the answers, because sometimes you feel like if you ask the answers, you're going to get scolded for, well, didn't you read the book? And so
but you're also on an island.
There's people who,
right? Like you're on an island a lot.
Say it again.
You're on an island by yourself a lot, trying to figure this stuff out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Give me. I'll be right back again, guys. I'm sorry. I got some groceries in the back of the truck that just got delivered.
Okay.
So I'll be right back.
That's awesome. I thought he had to keep making water.
He was making an awful lot of it.
So he must have overdone it on the coffee.
So Ape, you've said this a couple of times. You said
I'm still here.
We're still going to talk about you. You said a couple of times all of us could make a video, and we've proven this. All of us can make a video on the exact same subject and play it back to back to back, and you're going to get from 6 different creators 6 completely different videos about the exact same subject. We did G90 night, and we did 2 meter night, and we did antenna night.
All right. Well, it's funny because I was working on a firmware update video for the 705, and Good Game posted one, and I'm like, dang, he stole my idea. And then 2 days later, Jason posted one, but God willing, there'll be a SSTV 705 firmware upgrade video tomorrow night.
And you guys laugh on the other side of the fourth wall, but you laugh at all the YouTube faces on the thumbnails and everything. But what happens is, let's say you go to YouTube and you search for how to do firmware upgrades on the 705, and 3 videos pop up, and you see Jason's face, and you see Good Game's face, and you see SmokinApe's face. You're going to click on the one with SmokinApe's face on it.
Hell yeah. But I thought about it because I was like, I'm not making that video now. And then you were like, dude, just make the video.
Do it.
And when I watched both of their videos, they actually do things a little differently. They take a little bit of a different approach. And it kind of goes back to when you go to do a firmware update on a 705, which is relatively simple process. It's not like it's not like the G90, I can tell you that. There's anxiety there because you're talking about $1,200 radio that you could potentially brick. So watching and getting a few different perspectives is actually a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I did the same thing with my my Baofeng chirp video on Mac OS. I mean, you've done a chirp video, but you haven't done one on Mac OS. So
Actually, my one is on Mac OS.
oh, okay. So both of us have the same video.
Yeah, but I did not go into what I did in my video was really just here's how you use chirp. Yours was again similar content was here's how you install the drivers, and you went through
Get past the security requirements and stuff.
Yeah, at the time when I made it, I was like, look, this isn't talking about cables because that's a huge topic that you can go down. And it's not talking about drivers because that's another one. Mine was just specifically here's programming a Baofeng with chirp because at the time I was trying to program Baofengs with chirp and I didn't find any easy to consume content on the subject. So I just said, well, let me go ahead and make this video.
So John's asking for a link to the G90 night. I will dig up that link if Ape can vamp for a bit and keep the stream going.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what I'll talk about, but I'll just keep going. But the thing is that there's only a few different premises. Like if you take a look at POTA videos, right? Somebody who's going to a park, they're setting up a station and they're making contacts. And everybody does that a little bit different. What I like about POTA videos is I don't really want to watch somebody make contacts. That's not of interest to me. But I do like to watch K8MRD make contacts because he acts like he wins the lottery when he makes a contact. And it doesn't even need to be a far off land. Just the exuberance that he brings to the table when he does that is just like, man, this guy's having a fantastic time. What I like to see about POTA videos is I want to see the radio that they're using. I want to see the battery that they're using. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate the feedback. And I want to see the antenna system that they're using because I'm actually more interested in the station configuration than I am, watching somebody call CQ. But that's just me. Other people want to see folks making the contacts, and then you learn about the cadence and the language and the slang or the jargon that ham radio operators use. So that's why as YouTube folk we sit around and a lot of us will have very, very similar content but feel that it's non-competing, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So groceries, dude, what'd you get?
Oh, I got everything, man. We gotta storm this. Currently in progress and supposed to continue. So I got
steaks
some
and
batteries
beer
because you guys know me and my batteries. I got steaks. I got lots of steaks. I got some ribs.
Oh, nice. I should come over to your house.
I got applewood bacon.
Oh,
yeah, we're gonna have all a party here, man. If it's the blizzard of 2021, let's do it right.
We're gonna make.
We got ham radio.
Yeah, my wife is making a big old lasagna today, and she does fantastic with Italian dishes. She's not the best cook all around. I hope she doesn't hear me talking mess, but man, that lasagna she makes is I can't wait. So I guess there's gonna be an Italian evening tonight here at the Ape House.
Yeah, I can't find that playlist.
Nice. Ham Radio Crash Course. Good morning.
Oh,
yeah, they're probably just waking up over there on the West Coast.
Well, Josh is. I
been...
think he's still at the beach, right? Didn't he go to the beach to do his field day activation?
Yeah, he was there last night, yesterday. So yeah, he probably still is over there. Because we still got 3 hours or so left of. Well, I guess it's 2 hours now, right? 2 hours, 2.5 hours left of winter field day, right?
Yeah, Dorset Drone guy's asking, what's the best band for a complete new guy that's never had any hands-on? 2 meters. It's 144 band. You can get a handheld ham radio like a Baofeng for $25. You can spend a little bit more and get a Yaesu for about $100. Relatively easy, and the proliferation of 2 meters across the United States is pretty vast. Definitely 2 meters is the way to go. It's very simple compared to some of the other bands.
Cool thing about if you start on 2 meters too, Abe kind of alluded to it, but it's definitely a lot less expensive to get into it. And there's still just equally as much kind of cool stuff you could do. Let's say you
Yeah.
kind of get tired of just talking on an HT, you get an SDR and all of a sudden you could at least see the bands and you can see how the bands work. You could decide to upgrade to a single sideband 2 meter radio. But just to start off, you have that ability to talk to people. You have the usage of the band, and tons like All Star. There's tons of little small projects you could incorporate into 2 meter.
Well, you can do APRS, right, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
You can you can do SSTV is another thing. There's tons of stuff that you can do and grow in 2 meters. But what I like doing and is when I drive to work, I haven't been in my office since March. Um, is that I kick on the local repeaters, and during my commute, I pass through coverage of 3 different repeaters, and sometimes I'll join in the fun. Sometimes I'll just sit there and listen. And you have people talking about the band conditions from the night before, or you have people talking about some upcoming event or activity, or people talking about their stations. And it's really a good way to learn through osmosis, is to listen to other folks talk about ham radio.
I think I found it. Now
That G90 night
and I
might have
agree
been.
with.
Oh, there it is. I was gonna say it might have been before we were doing playlists.
it actually was a Thursday night, and it was the first theme night that we ever did. So
Oh wow, yeah, very cool.
and
So
Hayden
most of
wasn't
you guys
involved in
all.
this
Yes,
one,
I
so
never
it's
saw
actually
this.
all on topic.
Nice. I never saw this night. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's where I did the
Let me see.
FT8 on the G90. I think was the video I posted on that one.
Speaking of that, you mentioned FT8, so it's all free and fair game now. Here we go, FT8 guys. No, I was talking and I'm like, you know what? We're gonna do a QRP night for our next FT8 face off on Thursday, and I was half tempted to use a dummy load and just see if I can make any contacts on a dummy load with FT8. So far, just initial testing, it ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I've seen where people use like a light bulb and make an FT8. Josh is saying that he wished there were better options for 2 meter SSB. And then he clarified that by saying better, he thinks he means cheaper. And it would be nice to be able to get a HT that did 2 meter SSB. And I get that it's going to be
For
expensive.
sure it would.
For like $250, $300 or something like that. They actually, I think it was Adam was talking about a handheld he was going to buy. I wonder if he did. That was 1.2 gigahertz. We actually do have 1.2 gigahertz repeater close. It's actually pretty far away, but it's not. It's within driving distance. And I was like, I should buy that radio and test it out. But again, I'm not gonna. I didn't feel like dropping $300 on something that may or may not be of any value to me. But I wish that there was some more ways to play on 1.2.
Yeah, so Josh brought up the 7100. I have a 706 that'll do that, and I think the 991 will do that also, right?
Yeah, it will, and so will the 705. But the 705 is 5 to 10 watts depending.
Yeah.
And then this 9700. But again, all of those are expensive entry paths into 2 meter SSB, right?
So the 991A is kind of a shack in a box radio where it's got all the HF bands and the 2 meter 70 centimeter band and power, barefoot power. And then the 706, the one I have, doesn't do 70 centimeters at all. And Philip's mentioning the 746, which is another good radio.
Yeah, I've never really played with a 991, so I can't really speak to it from an experience standpoint. But I think it gets a really bad shake because a lot of people are like, well, it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't hear well. And I think that is so much people repeating groupthink or something that they read or heard on the internet. Like I would love to see somebody sit down with an 891 and a 991 and have a blindfold on, and then somebody else with the same band conditions on the same bands talking to the same stations with the same antenna, with a switch box going back and forth, and have them really be able to tell which one is which. Because I think most people are full of crap, to be honest with you. And there's so many things that play into that I get that in controlled lab conditions, you might get better selectivity and sensitivity out of an 891 than a 991. But I just don't believe that people can really tell the difference by ear. I just don't.
Somehow I
So it's
activated
funny you
the
mentioned that, Abe.
KK6USY button. I mentioned something about Yezu, and he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's here again. Hey, it's funny you mentioned that, Ape, though, because I mentioned last week that I was going to be doing that with handhelds, where I'm going to be blindfolded and somebody's going to come in and basically have a radio in, and I'm gonna judge these HT radios by how well they sound. And people are going to argue it's going to be subjective because my hearing's not going to be the same as TO's hearing and so forth. Uh, but if that goes well, where people like that video and like to kind of see how I rate the radios on how they sound, I definitely would go into the HF market and just borrow some buddies' radios, so we have a pretty big spectrum of radios. We'll have the 991, the FTDX10, the 7300 blindfold. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. What's funny is I tell the story every now and then. When I started out with ham radio, I had a Balfang and I was on a repeater, and I'm like, shepherd the lost sheep. This is Smoking Ape. Anybody out there, give me a radio check. And somebody came back and they were like, hey, no, you sound good. It's not quite full quieting, but perfectly understandable. And hey, by the way, what kind of radio are you using? And I'm like, I'm using I'm all proud, I got a Balfang UV5R and it looks cool. And,
Right.
and then they're like, what? It's breaking up. I'm hearing fried eggs, all that kind of stuff. And their advice to me was to go buy an ICOM. And, I'm like, what is he even talking about? I don't even,
What's an ICOM?
Nope. Right. I'm like, nobody's buying ICOM. They're all buying Balfangs. This guy's crazy. But, it's just, until he found out what I was using, I sounded fine.
Oh, Chuck's talking about a video he's got coming out, head-to-head comparison, 991 versus 891. I'll be looking forward to that one, Chuck.
Yeah, I talked to Chuck a lot about that particular topic, and I am really looking forward to his video.
I think too, you get that with anything. I could do a whole review on the FT70D, and I could say that I feel like the battery life is fine for my needs. You've got 1,000 people jump on there who probably hate ICOM, but there are problems with that battery, for what I understand. But you'll just have a bunch of people arguing, maybe to argue, or maybe just because they hate Yezu for whatever reason. And I'm just saying Yezu because you guys know I'm a fanboy of Yezu, right? But I think no matter what you do, people will be like, oh, everything sounds good. You're doing a good job. Oh, it's Yezu, it's garbage. Whatever. It doesn't matter what brand it is. It's just like you're going to have haters anywhere. It's unfortunate, though. If it gets you on the air, man.
That's the thing where it goes back to it is unfortunate. I'm just happy to hear somebody making a contact, getting on the air, getting into the hobby, showing interest. I really don't care what kind of radio that they're using, as long as they're being cool.
Yeah.
It's a.
Oh, he's gone again.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
I thought he might have to go get his snacks out of the back of the car.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I gotta tell you.
Oh, we got a new subscriber. Awesome. Welcome, Adam.
Nice.
Let's see here.
If you're watching this video while you hit the subscribe button, good to have you.
Dorset, wait, I'm trying to read some of these comments here. Just an 8-meter square antenna. If I put the main rig at my parents' house in the country, can I use it remotely over the web?
Yes.
Sure can.
Yep. There are ways to do that for sure. In fact, TEO, he operates remotely every time we do our FT8 face-offs, even though it's against the rules and the regulations. I'm kidding, but really, you do. You operate technically. You operate remotely, right?
Yeah. So I sit on my streaming computer, and then my FT8 computer is sitting right next to it, and I'm remote controlling my FT8 computer from my streaming computer. Because you're asking a whole lot to FT8 and stream and YouTube chat and video cameras. It's just a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But the whole point is it doesn't matter if you're still local to your house. The theory's the same. So you're able to remote next to your computer by a remote desktop connection, I'm assuming.
Yeah, VNC.
VNC. And the theory would be the same even if that computer and that station was in
Now, depending
Arizona.
on your budget, you're going to run into issues with doing voice communications or Morse code communications. They both can be done with remote stations. what I would suggest is go to your remote station first, get that all set up, get it all working, get it all sorted out, and then leave the computer on with something like VNC set up and go back to your house and try and run FT8. You're going to be missing a portion of the experience, but you'll still be able to get on the air.
Yeah, and depending, like what Tio said, on your budget, like if I was going to really, really invest in a remote station, it would be with a Flex and a Maestro. Looks like it's the best way to do it. I actually don't like operating remote, and I'll do that. Like even when I'm sitting here and I'm doing FT8, I remote into my Raspberry Pi from a Windows 10 machine, or I'll take my tablet and I'll go sit on the couch in the other room watching TV, and I'll do FT8 remotely that way. But when I'm here, I like to watch my SWR meter, my external SWR meter, not just the one that's reported via the radio. And my power levels, I like to look at my tuner and make sure that it's not making crazy noises or doing something nutty. I like to watch the power supply. My power supply has a meter on it that I look at, and it could just be that I'm a meter nerd, which is very likely.
Yes.
But I just, I'm always like, well, what if it's on fire in the other room and I don't know that,
Yeah, well, so for FT8, I get that the little red meter on the left, well, it's not supposed to be red. As I'm sitting at the station, I'm constantly turning that RF gain knob up and down to get like right in the sweet spot of that meter. And you can't do that when you're remote. And it did not need to do that on my 706. I only really needed to do it on the 7300.
Yeah, I think it was field day last year. I ran into a problem that I had not run into before, and it was a good learning experience for me. I was sitting there and I was operating FT8 for hours, and I never do that. Like I usually do like an hour or two, something like that. But I'd been working for probably 4 hours, 5 hours of almost constant FT8, and then all of a sudden, my SWR was going crazy. I was getting no power out. Tio, you probably remember. I'm like, oh my god, it just went crazy. And I start looking at backup configurations, restoring them for my on my Raspberry Pi. And then I'm looking at all the settings on the 7300, and I cannot figure out what the problem is. I went out and I switched antennas, and it was fine. And then I was like, what? And I couldn't figure it out. And I switched antennas back, and it was fine. And it turned out that what the issue was, I believe, I don't have any empirical data, is that I was using a random wire antenna, which uses a 9-to-1 unun to do impedance matching between my coax and my antenna. And I think I overheated the ferrite core, and it hit Curry level where it became unstable. And as a result, my antenna wasn't working. So, I think of things like that, and I'm like, well, what if I have a failure like that and I'm remote, and then what happens? And I'm just being a big
Then you stop
sissy.
playing radio, yeah.
Yeah.
So one real quick thing, I didn't even think about this. The Dorset drone guy's been asking about operating from a loft. And, one of the best ways to operate from a loft is to take your radio to a picnic table outside and set up a vertical antenna.
I mean, that's definitely a way.
Like, don't let any
loft.
restriction stop you from hamming harder.
It is definitely a way. And actually, you just brought up a really good point. Depending on what level of the loft he is and what's above his patio, he could throw up and I'm not a fanboy of this one, but he could throw up like a Wolf River coil or something along those lines.
He could dangle a wire off the balcony. He said he doesn't have any windows in his apartment, though.
Oh, no windows. I must have missed that. Darn. But that's a thought. Yeah. And then you could take a portable too. So, that is an option. Take a portable.
Yeah. So the short answer is don't overthink it.
Yeah, even at the apartment complex, apartment complex have little play areas or whatever, or little outside areas. Just go out there and set it up.
Or get yourself a DMR or System Fusion or a D-Star radio and a Pi-Star hotspot.
So he does have windows, just no yard or patio. And in the case that you have windows, just no yard or patio, you might do what they call a pass-through. And yeah, you might even try to hook up to those gutters. And I know people hate that when you suggest gutters, but like, who was it earlier who
Marty
said that Marty made like 164 contacts or something like that yesterday?
Speaking of remote stations, Kyle's got the Flex radio set up in the Maestro, and he was operating in the Winter Field Day contest yesterday from his basement with his Flex Maestro radio head, which was then remote controlling a Flex radio base station somewhere else. So Kyle's got a good video on that in action.
Yeah, his operating contest videos are always fun to watch. He says he doesn't get salty, but he gets a little salty in them, and I always find that refreshing.
Yeah. Of course, Kyle
Or-
comes in right at the 5 minutes to end of stream mark here. So
Yeah, we said we were going an hour. We're closing in on 2.
yeah, we're
right?
closing on number 2. So one of the cool things about this, and you know, don't feel like we love having you in the chat, but don't feel like there's any pressure to sit here and hang out with us for 2 hours. We definitely enjoy having you. But one of the cool things about this kind of content is you can turn us on in the background while you're working on whatever project on your workbench or cleaning up your ham shack or something like that. I do that with Kyle's stream, for instance. I'll watch him sometimes while I'm building something or cleaning up or whatever. And this is just fantastic background noise. It's better to me than just listening to, you know, the latest music singles that these kids are listening to today.
You know, you're absolutely right. It's a video podcast is what it is, right? So we could sit here and we could BS, but you don't have to watch the video. You could just sit here and listen. It's every now and then somebody might say something good. I'm talking about myself, but also I
That
did
you're a
just
good
post,
listener. Yeah,
know that every now and then I'll say something valuable.
we're waiting.
But hey, so my valuable input right now is don't forget to join the Discord. You know, the Discord server is kind of like a lot of times people will ask questions, right? And I definitely promote commenting on videos and everything, but they'll ask a question in one of the videos and maybe it'll get lost in the comments or whatever. You can always jump on the Discord and there's definitely there's ham radio category set up. There's 3D printing category set up, and ask your question there. Just hang out.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times it's a very loose script like this too. It's not like we're not uptight. Like, oh, you posted in the wrong chat. You posted in the ham radio chat, and this should be food chat because we have a food chat too. You know.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is don't forget to join the Discord.
Dan's currently winning
Yeah.
food chat for the day.
Yo, I just got all those groceries. You just wait.
Oh yeah, I haven't posted. I haven't eaten yet today, so I'm starting to get a little hungry. I'm gonna have to go figure out what we got down there.
Yeah, I'm on that intermittent fasting thing. I don't eat until I get hungry.
Do you like 16 hours no food and 8 hours of food, or is it less than that?
I stop eating after dessert at night, and then I don't have food until, you know, lunch-ish the next day.
Oh, I will say, and I know this is like completely off topic, but again, we really don't have a script. When I did keto, I did the intermittent fasting, and after a while, when you have no carbs in your system or no carbohydrates in your system, you definitely get used to it, and you don't crave food
Right.
anymore. You know, so
It's really, really hard to stuff yourself on either A, a head of broccoli, you just get tired of it, or B, a steak, you just get tired of it. But for some reason, I can just chow down a box of Ritz crackers until it's gone.
Yeah, that's it's funny how that works. I could never do one of those carb-free lifestyles with my love of Miller Lite. It just
Well, I mean, the
wouldn't-
stock price of Miller Lite crashing would be a big problem.
So here's the thing. If you're following keto, right? I think you could have up to they're supposed to be clean carbs or whatever they call them, right? But
25
you could have up
grams.
to like 20, 25 grams. It actually depends on your body, and really you're not going to get thrown out of ketosis until like somewhere around I think 50 grams. It depends again on the body. But that means like let's see, the average Miller Lite is what, like 4 grams of carbs. So, you know, you could
One
still
carb.
drink like you could drink is it only 1 carb?
No, I was joking.
No, it's probably.
No,
I don't know for sure, but it's probably, I'd say 4. So you figure
think
10 of
it's-
those, you're at 40 carbs.
Yeah. So you could technically drink 10 beer a day as long as you don't do anything else. Ask me how I know, man.
My whole diet is Miller Lite. What are you talking about?
Look at Kev Anderson with the win here. He says 2.6 grams for Miller Lite.
There you go.
Terry Jones, though, he did say, I want to thank the YouTuber bunch. You guys have helped the ham community a lot and keeping ham radio moving forward. Great job, guys. And, you know, I think when he says YouTuber bunch, he just means the group of everybody who's on YouTube and whatever. And I personally, I thank you, and I'm sure everybody else is very grateful too. We appreciate all the support.
Yeah, that's why we do it.
Keep making it fun for us. We'll keep making it fun for you, right?
Well, it's always nice to hear somebody say, "Hey, this helped me out," and it makes you feel good about all the cussing and screaming and fit throwing it takes to make a video.
I thought you were going to talk about QRZ forums.
No, I mean, I don't even go over there, but
No.
making a video sometimes is a real pain. Looks like my internet cracked out again.
He says right that his video cuts out. Perfect timing. Yeah, it's a real pain.
You know, an ape has expressed those frustrations too before, like, hey, I don't know about this video, and whatever he doesn't know about a video,
Post
it's
it.
usually going to be a banger for him.
Yeah, so Ape's video on HF propagation, man, I heard about that for like 2 weeks. Oh, I don't know about this video. Oh, I don't like it. Oh, I'm so boring. Oh, this is so dry. Meanwhile, we're having like a bachelor raffle in the chat trying to see who can get the highest bid on Smoking Ape's time there. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I was glad to see that the views on it are relatively low because I think it's just not a topic that most people would seek out. But I feel like the video do well over time. But yeah, I thought for sure that people were going to be like, "You sound like a dummy, boy." You know, I just didn't think it was going to go well.
Well, there is. I mean, like you guys talk about mic fright. It's the exact same thing that we do with posting videos. Is, you know, how do we get the video out to the masses and get the information? And by the time you hit the export and upload to YouTube button, it's like, oh man, there's like 5 things I forgot to say. So yeah, HF propagation is just not one of those things that you know how to properly ask the question, but that's the answer, you know?
You know, I think we hit on that in our live stream. I don't remember what live stream it was, but I was like, oh yeah, it was FD it off actually. And I'm like, hey, yeah, let's check the band conditions. And I know to look at numbers and I know
Oh yeah,
what numbers
SFI.
are good, bad. And you're like, hey, what does that all mean? And I'm like, you tell me. And you're like, I don't know. But Ape was able to step up and be like, well, that's kind of cool too. It's like elmering our own too.
And some of this stuff is all feelings based. Like you don't really need to know what SFI actually legitimately means and how it's made up to know that 70 is where you want to be on SFI to get what you want done.
Yeah, and it's just part of that growing or that experience, right? Like what you want to look at is key performance indicators that just say this is going to be good or this is going to be bad, and then learn the why and the how at another time, right? Just continue to build and grow that. Exposure is the important thing, and like when the video that I did, like I call them made easy videos when I did it with the nano VNA, and where it's just like, hey, this is a intimidating topic, but let's just look at it at a very simple level, and make it approachable to folks, and then get your feet wet, and then you'll figure. I've had people that come to me and say, hey, I watched one of your videos 2 years ago and I got into ham radio and I wanted to say thanks. And they're into this incredible stuff that I don't even know how to do, but it was through that exposure that got them on that path. And that's what's important about it.
Yeah. Everybody knows more than we do. We just know a little bit about what we're posting about.
Right.
Exactly.
So we're at the end of the stream, boys. We'll go around the room and do the end credits, the roll. Dude, are you you're doing like some technical checking stuff over there? Everything working out all right for you?
I was just petting the dog.
Oh, say hi to Chuck for me.
Chuck, hi.
Good job.
Well, no, guys, you know, it's I do like these streams also because I think they also show our personalities. You know, we have a little bit when we do videos, we got to kind of stay on point, and I deviate a little bit. But anyway, I guess my point is I appreciate everybody coming out to these streams because we get to kind of relax for a little bit, be ourselves, but also have a good time. Check out my channel, by the way. I'm Ham Radio Dude, and yeah, I do ham radio stuff. If you guys didn't know that, but if you do like what you see, always let me know because then I know to make that content more. If you don't like what you see, let me know because then I know not to make that content. But anyway, I appreciate being on the stream today. Thank you guys for having me, and hopefully we'll do this again.
It was your idea, wasn't it?
I think last night was Ape.
All I know is you guys
said,
like,
why don't we stream? And I'm like, all right.
Tio, are you in? Yes. What are we doing? It's
kind of funny.
My default answer.
It's funny how that works. You know, like I think the last one we did was a last minute game time decision as well, right?
Yep.
I think we did that with 2 days. You know, I think it was the new to the hobby, the one we did on my stream.
Yep. I
think we had 2 days notice, and we're like, yeah, let's do it in 2 days. And it worked out for us. I like that one. This one did really well too. I was watching the concurrent viewers in the chat, and the numbers were pretty good.
Yeah, 50, 60 is pretty good. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Ape, tell us what's coming up for you.
Just that 705 video that I'm working on, and then there's some drama around that tuner that I bought for the 705, and the batteries that are in there. People will call them proprietary batteries. And that's why they don't like that particular version, but they're not proprietary. You can buy replacements.
They're just odd.
They are a little bit of an odd size and composition, but So I got to make a decision. Am I going to bust that $250 tuner open and dissect them batteries for everybody or not? And
Do it for the fans.
yeah, I think I'm going to do it. It'll be a good learning experience all the way around. And so I did want to say, hey, thanks for having me on. I do enjoy doing these streams, but most importantly, thanks to everybody for watching and for the chat. That if it wasn't for the participation that we get from the chat, we would just be sitting here, probably arguing over something stupid.
Jim says, well, you guys are still here. He went out and shoveled all the walks for himself and all of his neighbors, and he came back and we're still streaming.
So what do you want to talk about today? Well, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? Nobody's in the chat, so we're just going around. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about getting a new dog. My dog's kind of lonely.
Marty did ask how my dog was, and I know we're trying to get done with the stream, but we can go all day. My dog, thank you very much for asking. He's been really good. The issues that he was having, the doctors couldn't figure it out, the vets couldn't figure it out, and it turns out that his DNA test came back. I did a DNA test back in November, and they came back, and the DNA test actually confirmed what his problem or his disease is, and it's he can't work too hard. So thank you very much for asking. He's been really good. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then for me, I've already talked about doing the SSTV demo on Thursday, the SSTV live stream on Friday. We're doing FT8 off on Thursday also. Monday Night Ham Radio is coming up tomorrow night. We got a lot of good content on that. Sean's got a video coming out there. And we will see you on the next stream. Thanks very much for being here. Thanks for being awesome, everybody.